Vanakkam, Namaskar, Vandanam, Namaste. Welcome to this session on organization role stress. It's nice to see you all here. Stressing on organization role stress on a de-stressed weekend. That's a lot of stress, but I think it's absolutely necessary for us to have a little bit more awareness to see where we put our stress quotient in the overall picture of our role. I actually would want to leave it to Siddharth to take it up from here and focus more so that we stay in time and we also finish off our debriefing of the score and move on to taking as many questions as possible. One of the things that we would want to focus consciously we started doing from last week is allow as much space for questions as it is for debriefing. So Siddharth, over to you and take us through organization role stress for the week.
Yeah, with me, of course,
I hope I've stressed enough.
Dr. Surabhi Purohit. Thank you so much, Shashi, for joining and giving kickoff context to the entire thing. So organization role stress now, this is a very, very useful instrument from the point of view that it not only identifies that an individual has a certain level of stress, but also puts a label on some of those finer aspects of stress. Where is the stress coming from? Right. So often the beauty of any development intervention like coaching or so on is that the moment there is a label to the mental process, there is a very, very high degree chance of insight for the individual. And also identifying the source helps a person do something about it. It's not very useful just knowing someone has a fever, but it really helps saying that, oh, the fever is coming from a throat, irritation from which comes up from the extra ice cream that you had yesterday. So from that point of view, the role stress is a very, very powerful instrument. And I have personally used it over the last 15 years. It has some very high validity, reliability scores that can be used quite happily by researchers. The instrument also kind of sits well with the role efficacy instrument. If you're going to do an intervention in an organization, you can have something called a role lab, where both the efficacy and the role stress instruments are given to individuals, and then they are helped to work on their own development and even planning for the entire department if that's required. Having said that, we will come up with a presentation that Dr. Surabhi will be presenting shortly. Just a couple of things. As the event is going ahead, please make as many notes as possible, because it's one thing to have a YouTube availability. The other is also making notes, because when many of us write, a single of the two loops of learning is already completed there. So consider making short notes of whatever you are learning, not whatever is being said. The difference is, kind of just assimilate it and write down whatever you picked up, then the learnings go up further. If you remember, I had very shortly touched upon, in a very short way, on what is role set and role space last time. That will come in very, very handy now. And at this point, I'm going to invite Dr. Surabhi to take it away with the presentation. I'm going to share my screen. And as and when I find an opportunity to contribute something, I'll just signal out to you, ma'am, and we'll take it forward from there. Yeah, ma'am, over to you. Ma'am, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Just
yes, ma'am, over to you. Everything okay? Please carry on.
Yeah, I just have to. Thank you, Shashi, and thank you, Siddharth, for giving such a beautiful introduction about the organizational role stress. And organizational role stress is becoming so common. We have various kinds of stresses in our life every day. Now, what kind of stresses do we actually face and have? Now, this is, now again, I'm very happy to share that this instrument, organizational role stress, again, this theory has been developed by Uday Pari. Very fortunate to have him as our father. And he developed this theory like role efficacy. And all those who have attended role efficacy session, they will be able to understand this in a very good manner. And they will be able to relate to role stress. And they will be finding a linkage between role stress and role efficacy. how role stresses can be removed, and a role efficacy is a method by which we can remove the role stresses that we have in our organization. Now we have two kinds of stresses, of course, one in our personal lives, and organizational role stress is totally related to the organization, the role stresses that we face in the organization. Yeah, next please. Now, although we may not be using these various terms in our description, in our explanation, but there are four terms which are commonly used for organizational role stress. One is a stressor. Stressor means which induces stress, which gives you stress, that produces stress in the person. So it can be anything. Your child not reaching home on time, or not reaching the office on time. It could be anything for that matter. Then we have stress, which is the affective or the emotional part in the experience of incongruence. Stressor produces stress. And then we have symptoms in physiological, behavioral, and conceptual responses or changes. So these can be in physiological form, in the sense that there could be heart palpitation, there could be insomnia, the person is perspiring. So it could be in any form. Or behavioral symptoms can be seen, that there could be temper tantrums, or the person is having tics, sort of. So these are the symptoms. Then finally we have the coping. So how do we really cope with the stress? There are various ways of coping with stress, and every person finds his own way of coping with the stress. So these are the four terms which we commonly use for stresses. Next, please. Next slide, please. Now, modern life is full of stress. As organizations become more complex, the potential for stress increases. And we all know urbanization, industrialization, all these are great causes for stress. So we cannot live without stress. People experience stress as they can no longer have complete control over what happens in their lives. See, these are some of the examples, like the telephone going out of order, power is shut down, the water supply is disrupted, and expected promotion is denied, children performing poorly at school, prices are increasing disproportionately, and we become frustrated and then finally stressed. So this is stress. Now, these days, COVID-19 is a big example of stress. Not being able to move out, not being able to, go around, not being able to go to the restaurants. There are so many limitations we have in COVID-19. So that is also creating a lot of stress. Now, since there is no escape from stress in the modern life, we need to find ways of using stress productively and reducing dysfunctional stress. So productive stress is called eustress, and dysfunctional stress is called distress. Actually, we need optimal stress for productivity. Just take an example of a musical instrument. If you give too little stress, you let the wires loose, then what will happen? It will not make any sound. There will be no music. So little stress is not going to work. Then if you give too much stress, what will happen? There will be screeching sound, and again the wires may break. So we need to have a right amount, that is optimal stress, to produce the right kind of music. Similarly, in our lives, we need to have a right amount of stress, because we cannot achieve our goals without having any stress. A key to achieving our goals in our life is stress, because without stress, you are not able to work, you will not reach your goals. So it is required. Now, as already stated in the previous sessions also, and Siddharth has repeatedly said about the roles. So it is a set of functions which is in response to the expectations of the persons around us, the significant others in our social system that we have. It may be peers, it may be subordinates, it may be your superiors. Next, please. Yeah. So now role is a part of role system We have two role systems. One is the role space and other is the role set. As already Siddharth just talked about the role systems, role space and role set. We will be talking about them in details, although you have already heard these terms before also. But role space and role set are the two parts of role system. Yeah, next please. In role space actually has three. Now in role space we have three dimensions, and in role set we have 7 dimensions. Again 10 aspects total. Like role efficacy we had 10 aspects. Here also we have 10 aspects. And I think you will be very well able to relate role efficacy and role stress. Now, what is role space? Role space is a dynamic relationship between various roles and individual occupies and is self. It has three main variables. One is the self. The other is the role which the person takes up, which is under question, and the other roles that he occupies. Any conflict among these role space is totally related to the roles. We are all, we have roles around us. We are doing so many roles. So the first role space aspect is the self role integration. If you remember, we had talked about self role integration in our previous session, that is role efficacy. I think you all must be remembering. So in order to avoid role self role distance, we have to we need self role integration. So this stress arises out of the conflict between the self concept and the expectations from the role as perceived by the role occupant. If a person occupies a role that he may subsequently find it to be conflicting with the self concept, he feels very stressed. Just for an example, a person who is an introvert and suddenly he's given a job of, you know, salesman or or a person or you know, or marketing manager, he may find it very difficult to do that because he is an introvert person. He finds it very, so there is self role distance. He will not be able to justify the role that is given to him. So there is again stress due to this. Since an individual learns to develop expectations as a result of his socializing and identification with significant others, it is quite likely that he sees a certain incompatibility between the different expectations or functions of his role. So there is always incompatibility. There should be, and self-role integration is the way we can resolve self-role distance. Next, please. Yeah. Second aspect in role space is the role stagnation. We all have a need to grow in our roles. As we talked in the previous session, I'm relating it to that also because so that you can find a link between the two sessions. So we were talking about the personal growth. If there is no personal growth in our role, we feel stagnated and this may create stress. So role stagnation is the lack of development in the role possessed by an individual. If an individual has occupied a specific role for a long time, the role development can stagnate due to comfort, which hinders them to undertake new roles and challenges. Provide a similar definition, arguing that role stagnation occurs when an individual experiences the lack of development and the feeling of being stuck in the same role. So in organizations, new roles are always created. When person is taking up the new roles, and but he's a little reluctant because he's comfortable in the old role, because now he has learned about it and he's very comfortable in that role. He doesn't want to move out of his comfort zone. So that may create stress in the person. So when an individual is given a new or higher role, he or she might stick to the old role due to the feeling, yeah, that chat is feeling of insecurity stresses that the feeling of being stuck in the role and the perception that there is no opportunity for development. So this may again create stress in the person. This is role stagnation. And because if there is no personal growth in the role that you have taken up, and you want to take up the role, but you are comfortable in the previous role, So again, there will be stress in that role. So this is role stagnation. Yeah.
So stagnation is interesting. Um, this is often, I mean, this is very interesting because, in some of the multinational companies in India, without, understanding the social context, they have, created designations which are, executive, manager, senior manager, director, and VP. Right now, what happens is between this this senior manager and director, there is at least a 10-year gap. Now, while it might be perfectly fine in a different country's context, in India, people like to have a slight change in the perception, right? So when this kind of a thing happens, those individuals at senior manager tend to kind of attrite after 2 or 3 years, because they say, "Arey, there is no other growth for me here. Though I might have a little bit of perceptual growth, I might have a little bit of personal growth also. I don't perceive that the role is really expanding, because it's just such a sharp pyramid at the top. Whereas if you see a lot of Indian IT companies, they're beautifully cracked it, right? They might have 20 levels, but every person gets promoted once in 18 months, right? Or so. And that really helps overcome this stress of role stagnation. Ma'am, over to you.
Yeah. The third one is the interrole distance. We all are occupying various roles in the organization. We have so many roles to play. One person may be holding a responsibility as a manager, the CEO, CEO, and at the same time organizer, treasurer, or so many different roles. So we all have different roles to play in the organization. So when there is a conflict between these roles, then there is interrole distance. So interrole distance occurs when different roles possessed by an individual are in conflict. Now, interrole distance is the conflict that are likely to arise when an individual attempts to play several roles. For example, an individual can occupy a managerial role in an organization as well as familial role at the same time. Now, there you may find various people who are busy in the organization, holding various roles, doing various roles in the organization. At the same time, they have various duties or roles at the family also, or maybe different places. And the person is not able to give enough time to the family. So this may create again stress in the person. This is called interrole distance, when a person is having many roles to play, and he's not able to justify the various roles that are given to him. He's not able to give time to each and every role because it is not possible. So this may create stress in the person. This is called interrole distance. Now, these were the three aspects of role space which are related to the role only. Now, role set talks about the persons which are involved in sending the expectations, etc., and who create roles. Role set consists of important persons who have varying expectations from the role that an individual occupies. The conflicts which arise as a result of the incompatibility among these expectations by the significant other, and of course the person himself, are referred to as role set conflicts. Now, these conflicts again may take various forms. There are 7 kinds of role set conflicts in which the persons are involved. Yeah, next please. First one is role ambiguity. See, whenever we are given a new role, we are not able to understand what we have to do in the new role. For example, if you are made even a secretary of some professional body, or you don't know what you have to do. If you are made a vice president of some, a member of somewhere, you don't know what to do in that new role. So you keep on asking people. So role ambiguity actually arises when an individuals have an unclear understanding about their role in an organization and the expectations laid on. So if a person is given the role of convener, for example, of a treasurer or a CO, first he needs to understand what he has to do in that particular role, because he has his own expectation from the role, others have their own expectation from the role. So role ambiguity is not being able to understand the role properly. Now, role ambiguity is a lack of information which is available for an employee required for adequate performance. Role ambiguity is experienced by an individual when no clear expectations exist about their role in an organization. So we keep on moving from one role to another. Unless and until we are very clear about what we have to do in the new role, we will not be able to do the new role, justice new role properly. So it is important that we understand the new role that we have taken up. Yeah.
Yeah, so role ambiguity often happens in many of our organizations, especially for new joiners. Right? What happens is the guy comes and joins, and in India we are not too assertive to ask for our new roles or a descriptor of the role or KRAs and so on. So what happens is the guy starts working, or this lady continues working based on assumptions from the previous job, right? And then suddenly, some signals come here and there saying what you're doing is not okay. And then, one is very confused. Acha, what am I supposed to be doing? This leads to this level of stress. Now, also, this also happens when people get promoted in an organization, right? Probably the team remains the same, expectations have increased a little bit, but then what has not been done is a clarification exercise. So as HR people, as our behavior experts, it's important to, connect a promotion or a status change with a summary of expectations exercise. So get people to answer, all the relevant stakeholders who are called role senders to, indicate what are the expectations from this role, and also get the individual to answer what is his or her own expectation from the role. So put it all together, get a sign off from the boss and give it to the individual. I'm telling you, that will be amazing increase in productivity. At least 50 to 80% productivity will increase in the with that person, right? Yes, ma'am. Next.
Yeah. Next one is the role expectation conflict. We always have, various expectations from different people. And so when there are conflicting expectations or demands by different role senders, persons having expectations from the role occupant experiences this type of stress. The conflicting expectations may be from the boss, subordinate, peers, or clients. Now, role expectation conflict is a result of the different expectations an individual develops in their social setting and identification with other peers. The discrepancy between an individual's own expectations about the roles in an organization often differ from the expectations of peers and managers and subordinates, etc., which is a source of stress. So whatever role you occupy, whatever role we are occupying, we have so many senders for that role and so many different expectations from the same role. Now for the same role, you may find people saying job should be done in this manner. For example, convener. If we talk about the convener, for example, or the head should this, or the convener should do this. Then your peers may say something else. No, this is not your job. You should do this. This is the way how it should be done. So many expectations from different persons, from different senders for the same role. A person gets so stressed. What is it that he really needs to do? There is a lot of confusion, and thus it leads to stress. This is called role expectation conflict. Yeah. Next, please.
Okay, ma'am is having some signal issues, I guess. I will step in there. So the role
the next one,
overload is very simple to kind of pick it up. I won't go over the entire slide. It's anyway there for you to read. But basically, overload is too much of work. right? If I have a manager who basically says or has a typically happens when, let's say, a group of 200 people has only one HR person, and this person is doing everything from compliance and development, and that is when the person there is too much of work to do, right? And that in simple terms is role overload. Of course, there are aspects of quantitative aspect and qualitative aspect. The quantitative aspect is basically the individual has too much work to do, while the qualitative aspect is talking about not having adequate knowledge to perform the task at hand. But then you'll also find that there is one more dimension that comes in a little later, which talks about resource inadequacy and personal inadequacy. So that will cover this qualitative aspect. Ma'am, is the signal better at your end? Can I hand over to you?
Yeah.
Over to you. I think I've covered this slide. I'll just jump to the next slide.
Yeah, I think it's better we jump on to the next slide.
Yeah, over to you.
The role erosion, and researchers really show that role erosion is one of the major causes for organizational role stress. Now, what is role erosion? Role occupant may feel that the functions he would like to perform are being done by some other role. Role erosion is the individual's subjective feeling that some important expectations that he has from a role are shared by other roles within the role set. Role erosion is likely to be experienced in an organization that is redefining its role and creating new roles. So role erosion can also arise when an individual performs adequately in the work role, but credit is given to someone else. So this is a very common kind of stress that people face in the organization. So often different roles are created in the organization by the superiors, by the head, by the CEO, etc., etc. And the new role which is created is given to other person, is given to a new person, and the person who is being promoted feels that his role is being taken up by somebody because he doesn't have any role to play now. He feels unutilized, that I'm being unutilized. I have no role to play here. So my role is being given to some other people. And this is a very, very common cause for stress in the organizations. Researchers show that. And role erosion arises if the functions and tasks belonging to specific role are being performed or shared with others or are done by others, conducted by others. So role erosion is likely to occur in organizational changes and when the organization creates new roles. Yeah. Now again, we may find this as an important aspect because in the organizations, even if we want to work, sometimes we find there is lack of resources. So resource inadequacy is another important stress in the organizations. Now resource inadequacy occurs when resources needed for an individual to perform effectively are inaccessible. Now they can be in the form of human relations, that is, you don't have the manpower. If you want to work as a team, you don't have the manpower. You don't have buildings, you don't have infrastructure. We want to create a new department, you want to construct something, you don't have that space, you don't have that building infrastructure, you don't have the materials. If you want to work on something, you don't know where to get the material from. You don't have the machines, tools, equipment, books, documents, and so on. The list goes on. So resource or finances or whatever. Often we find that due to lack of resources, we are not able to progress in the organization. We are not able to do what we actually want to do. You have everything, but the resources are not there. You have the skills and everything. You don't have the resources. So everything stops there. You will not be able to move further on your role. Yeah, next please.
Yeah, resource inadequacy is a very powerful thing, especially even when you check on engagement, right? So some of the question, Q12 of Gallup, for example, asks you, do you have all the tools and resources necessary to be successful at work? And these can be very, very minor, often having, for example, having gloves for people who work outside in the night and are handling, let's say, crates, will impact their productivity significantly. And hence it's very important for HR professionals like us to actually go out there and spend some time shadowing people and seeing whether there are aspects of resources that would actually help them do well. I remember that once upon a time in a particular healthcare company, they decided not to spend too much money on Microsoft Office, because it was fairly expensive, right, those days. So they decided to go in for a open source thing, which would make it legal, but of course you will have. But then what happened is the open source didn't have the kind of functions that were required, like a pivot or writing a formula and so on. So constantly there were people who were suffering, not being able to create reports, while the expectation of the top management was continue to have be there saying, I need those reports for reading. And this person would have to wait, because then there would only be one licensed system in the entire floor, and there would be a queue next to that licensed system, because everybody is trying to sequentially get their work done there. And of course, then the company learned that they were spending 10x more in employee salaries, and it was better to invest in some of these standard softwares. So resource inadequacy is something that as HR folks we have to keep an eye on and constantly give an input to the senior management. Personal inadequacy, ma'am.
Thank you, Siddharth. Now, personal inadequacy. Yeah, personal inadequacy. When we are not
having some single problems at ma'am's end,
or we have personal inadequacy. I think
having some single problems at ma'am's end. So I'll try to cover the slide. So personal inadequacy arises when an individual does not possess necessary skills to perform the tasks. Now, this is again a very useful thing, because it's not about people are absolutely incapable, but each of the jobs that are being done in an organization will require a certain just noticeable difference at the next level of skill or knowledge, right? And because of that, what often happens is people who are into new positions, transferred into a new job and so on, unless carefully nurtured and educated, will end up with feelings of personal inadequacy. And personal inadequacy can go as deep as, if allowed for a long time, can go into a very deep level of I am not okay, right? And that's not something that we want for anybody in this world, right? Everybody is okay. So it's a beautiful opportunity for HR folks like you and me to actually go out there and figure out, acha, how are things happening? Is there something else you'd like to learn? Especially when you partner with the reporting manager of the individual and you're able to manage that. I just see whether ma'am's back online. Ma'am, are you there? Back?
Just a sec, Siddharth, because I'm moving my laptop. Just
that's fine. That's fine. I'll handle it for you. So role isolation, right? Now, role isolation, if you remember last time, we were talking about role linkage as an aspect of role efficacy, which improves the efficacy if the linkage is higher. Role isolation is exactly the opposite, the psychological opposite of that construct, which is, there is mistrust, neglect from close colleagues. You don't find too much of helping relationship also. And basically the person feels very isolated, right? It could be the nature of the job, or it could be due to the way the job is structured or the organization is structured and so on. But yeah, as much as possible, we need to ensure that nobody feels isolated, right? So that's about it.
Yeah, I'm back, Siddharth.
Oh, wonderful. Welcome back. Ma'am, we are on the scoring. And
yeah, I was trying to shift my laptop to a place near to the net.
Yeah, I think it's working out very well right now. Thank you for doing that.
Good.
Would you like to explain the scoring and the norms?
Yeah, just a second. Yeah. The scoring, now the scoring for organizational role stress, again, as I said, the instrument is based on the theory on organizational role stress by Uday Parikh, and this scale has 10 dimensions, which you can see on the screen here. And this is a 5-point scale, which is a Likert scale scoring from 0 to 4. If you least face that kind of problem, you give a 0. And if it is most, you always face this kind of a problem, so you give a 4, which means every item has a maximum score of 20, because every aspect has 5 items. So there are total 50 items for the scale. And the more the score, the more this kind of stress you experience in the organization. So the least the score, minimum score can be 0 on one aspect, and maximum can be 200 overall. So this is the kind of norms that we have from the another group. This is not the group, but this is from another group that we have. Now we can see the norms here. If you have a score of low, 3, 5, 9, these are given. These are the scores. See, look at your scores now. Compare your scores with the scores given over here. So what is your score here? So anything up 2 up till 2, 3 is a low score. That means if you have a low score on SRD, that is self-roll distance, you experience least stress on your, this kind of stress. Self-roll distance, you have integration more. There is more of self-roll integration. But the higher the score, there is more of this kind of stress. And you can just compare your scores with the 10 aspects that are given here.
I'll just take over here.
Yeah.
So for all our participants, now you can probably toggle between both the screens. One is your results. Now what this really means is any score at, I mean, I'm not sure a 3 is really possible. For some reason, it seems to be appearing. The minimum score would be a 5 actually. The minimum score would be a 5.
Minimum could be 0, Siddharth. Minimum can be 0. We have 0 to 4 scale.
That's right. I'm so sorry. That's right. So yeah. The minimum could be a 0 and the maximum is a 200. And now just a couple of observations on the group data, right? Because I computed this for the entire group. What I've observed is mostly the scores are pretty much low, right? Roll stress scores are low for this group, in my experience. And there are a few of us who have scores above 100. And you might want to just, tinker a little bit and see which of those roll sub-dimensions is where you are having that particular stress. And then you can have a quick coaching conversation, right? Either with me or with ma'am or with Shashikant. Now,
that quick one, would you want to kind of just mention the abbreviations here, just to ensure people are on the same page?
We will do that.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Shall I, Siddharth?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Yeah, because somebody has a question over the abbreviations. These are the abbreviations what we just explained. SRD is the self-roll distance. Then IRD is the inter-roll distance. RS is the roll stagnation. RI is the roll isolation. RA is the roll ambiguity. REC is the can you hear me? Roll expectation conflict. Yeah, roll expectation conflict. RO is the roll overload. RE is the roll erosion. RIN is the roll inadequacy, and PI is the personal inadequacy. These we have just explained. These are just the abbreviations of what we have already explained. Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point in time, we will stop the recording. Thank you to all our viewers who joined on YouTube. This video is going to go up on YouTube. And we will now open the floor up for questions for those of us who are there on the live session. I'm just going to stop recording.